you ever heard a story that's so weird that every explanation somehow sounds fake? Well, good, because that's today's episode, and this actually happened. Back in 1959, 9 experienced hikers went into the mountains in Russia. Only one person from the group survived, and that was because he got sick before they even reached the mountain and decided to turn back. Everyone else died. Now, here's where it gets weird. When the rescuers finally found their campsite, the tent had been sliced open from the inside, not the outside, the inside. Think about that for a second. If you're warm inside a tent in the middle of a freezing mountain, what could possibly make you cut open your own tent instead of just using the zipper? Well, that's the mystery. And tonight on the Twilight Concepts, we're going to cover what the fuck happened. Hi, I'm BNRAYE. Welcome to the Twilight Concepts. I am maybe 5 blinkers deep, so let's just get right into it. So I want to start off by saying that these were not some random people that were just trying to hike for fun. These were people who actually knew what they were doing. Their leader's name was Igor Dyatlov. That's actually why it's called the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Their plan was simple. Go through the mountains, finish the trip, come home, easy. Except, they didn't get that last step. They started hiking near the end of January. Everything looked normal. They're taking pictures, writing in journals, laughing. Literally the last picture we have of them are just people having a good time. Nothing looked wrong, which honestly is probably what makes this story so much creepier. Because nobody knew that they were living through the last normal day of their lives. Eventually, they stopped for the night and pitched their tent on the side of a snowy mountain for some reason. This is where everything changes. Something happens that night. Nobody knows exactly what, but whatever it was, every single person in that tent decided getting outside was somehow safer than staying inside. Remember, it's below freezing, pitch black, middle of nowhere. They're not dressed to survive, and they still left. When rescuers finally got there weeks later, they found the tent mostly buried in the snow. Inside, boots, coats, food, supplies, basically everything you'd grab if you actually planned on leaving, which means they didn't plan on leaving. Something made them leave. The footprints leading away from the tent are probably my favorite detail in this whole story, because they weren't running everywhere. They actually walked. That part creeps me out more than anything. Imagine being so calm on the outside while something is terrifying enough that you had to leave your only shelter behind. About half a mile away, they found the first 2 bodies under a tree. These guys had tried to start a fire. One of them had climbed the tree. People still argue about why. Maybe they were looking for the tent. Maybe they were trying to see whatever scared them was still around. Nobody knows. As they searched more, they found 3 more people between the tree and the tent. It looked like they were actually trying to go back, which honestly makes sense. After a while you realize, yeah, running into a snowstorm with no boots probably wasn't the move, bro. But by then, it was way too late. The last 4 weren't found until months later after the snow melted, and these were the ones with the really strange injuries. Broken ribs, a fractured skull. Some injuries were compared to what you'd expect from a serious car crash. But there weren't obvious external wounds to match. That's one reason this case has been argued about for decades. So, what actually happened? Honestly, there's a bunch of theories. Some people say avalanche. Some people say military testing. Some people think that something else entirely. Aliens, government cover-ups, secret experiments. You've probably seen every theory if you've been online long enough. But personally, I think reality is usually weirder than conspiracy theories. The avalanche idea actually does explain a lot. Imagine you're asleep and a heavy slab of snow crashes into the tent. You think another one's coming. You don't stop to grab your boots, you cut your way out, you run downhill to the trees, then you realize you're stuck in a freezing mountain without your gear. And honestly, that's scarier to me than monsters. That's psychological, because mountains don't care if you're experienced, the cold doesn't care, nature doesn't care. Sometimes everything goes wrong because a bunch of little things happen exactly at the wrong time. There's still stuff about this story that doesn't completely make sense. There are details investigators still debate today, and maybe there always will be. But I think that's why people keep coming back to this case. Not because they expect aliens, but because they just want answers. So here's today's Twilight question. If you woke up in that tent and everyone around you suddenly started cutting through the sides and running into the snow, would you follow them or stay inside? Honestly, I don't know what I'd do. It just depends. Like, if I was maybe 5 blinkers deep, I might stay in the tent. I don't know, but that might encourage me to run even more. Now, let's shift our focus for a second to the segment that will make this show this show. I want to look at this situation through a pure biological and natural standpoint, also keeping the idea that we don't fully understand the universe and how it works. But one thing that we can understand from observation is that everything mirrors itself in the universe, and these mirrored things are often patterns. From cosmic webs that look like the neurons that power a human brain, from fruits that benefit parts of the body that they look like, to human fingerprints looking like the inside of tree rings. We see similar patterns everywhere across the universe, and we often see them across humans too. One thing that we know that humans have done, maybe since the beginning of modern human civilization itself, is taking psychedelics in the woods. Now, there are so many theories out there that humans may have even fucking evolved from psychedelics.
BNRAYE will be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Sponsors? Well, I guess back to the show.
For a lot of people, the practice of hiking or going deep into nature and taking these with groups of friends is not uncommon in the modern world. We actually see this a lot, and like I said, we've seen this for hundreds of thousands of years. And what's something else we've seen? Bad trips. Now, you may be familiar with them yourself, but a bad trip or the wrong mushroom, maybe they weren't even trying to experience a high. Maybe they had mushrooms that they had brought with them that they were going to use as food. Maybe they couldn't cook them, decided to eat them anyways, and then this is what happened. Now, I know that this is kind of crazy, it's kind of far out there, but I mean, it's just as good as any other theory that we can piece together. Hey, these guys might have gone up here in the snowy mountains. What else is there to do at nighttime in a tent with 9 other dudes in a snowy mountain? You can't you can't really have a fire or sit around the campfire and tell stories. So maybe they resorted to taking psychedelics in a tent that would just so be the last thing they ever did. If you like this kind of story, I've got a lot more. Real events, real mysteries, no fake ghost stories, and my mind running on overdrive to try and figure out what happened. I'm BNRAYE. This has been the Twilight Concepts. I'll catch you in the next one.